Welcome, everybody, to another episode in the podcast called Maximize Your Mastermind. My name is Sebastian Cruz. I'm the founder of True Freedom, the mastermind for mastermind leaders. And today we have a very special guest, Brent Perkins, on the topic of fatherhood. So, if you are a mission driven coach, like I know you are, and you're wondering how to balance all of the different areas of your personal and professional life while being a strong, present, loving leader in your family, then today's episode, I believe you're going to love because Brent has quite the track record. He's had over 10 years as a CEO of multiple eight-figure companies, and in those companies upwards of 50 plus employees. So when we talk about management of different personalities, different people, different schedules and timeframes, Brent has an incredible wealth of experience with that, with leadership. And he is the founder of the 3x Bold method and also Mastermind for driven dads. He's a fellow True Freedom Mastermind and founding member. And so with that being said, welcome to the show today, Brent.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the method, I'd love to hear, how did your mission come through, and really realizing that you had a calling to not only lead yourself with your personal life, with your love life, with your kids' life, with your business life. How did that connect to realizing, oh, I have a calling to share this work with other men?
Part of being in the entrepreneurial journey, um, working, my way up through sales and then executive suite and then owning businesses and running businesses, and being this driven human, which is why I work with driven dads. You know, there's this chase, right? Where I found I was chasing something, chasing things, chasing some form of success the whole time. Um, and you get to a point where you realize, or I realized anyways, there is no thing. There is no final thing to, like, doesn't matter how much money you get, it doesn't matter whether you find what feels like the perfect partner or you have the kids and the family in the house, like they're all they're still just things outside of yourself that don't you're gonna chase something more. Like it just keeps going.
Mhm.
And I I just got to this point where it's like I have all the things. Like for externally, you look at my life, it's like pretty good. It's actually not amazing in my relationship. I ended up going through a divorce because of all this, but I had all the things, like it was all there. And realizing that I needed to look inside and shift and do something different because there was nothing externally that I could bring in that would make me feel great, that would bring on instantaneous happiness, that would fill the void. The
Mhm.
void lived inside.
Mhm.
And for me, it was this lack of self-trust, lack of self-worth. Uh, and no amount of chasing was ever going to change that. So as I worked on that, as I went inside and I got this total random calling to step out of my career and write a book, which felt crazy because
I
I'm not
bet.
a writer. It's never
Mhm.
one of these people who's like, hey, I'm going to write a book one day. Not me. Um, and the same lesson came through in my book, which then I had to relearn again when I launched this mastermind, which we'll get into all these. But to give you a little insight, which is I had to let go and write the book for myself. I then had to relearn it and let go and start this mastermind because it was something I needed to actually do for me, not teach to other people. And this lesson keeps popping itself up in my life, which is I need to do these things for me and my journey, and sharing it was the ultimate way to give others the permission they do need to explore their own journey.
Mhm. So powerful. So many Awesome things there to unpack. Yeah, let's start with going first, leading by example,
Mm.
solving the problem for yourself, or even at the beginning, exploring the part for yourself. And I love how you shared the big leap, really, of writing your book and going off the path. And it sounded like, in those corporate type scenarios, like there's a very clear path. And if you probably take your eyes off the ball for a second, there's probably like 40, people behind you clawing and, ready to kick you out.
Oh yeah.
So I'd love to go deeper into that, of that feeling of that calling, that knowing, and also not knowing. Like knowing, I probably knowing like I got to do this, but not knowing anything else around the details.
Mm.
What was that like? What did that feel like? What did that sound like?
It, friction had built up in my life to a point where my mental health was degrading, my physical health was degrading. Um, it caused a lot of challenges in my marriage. It frankly prevented me from really showing up in my daughter's lives in the way that I do now, or I work hard at, which is this intentional way where they have attention from me,
Mm,
healthy attention in a focused way. All that was missing, and I didn't understand it all. And fortunately, um, probably because I'm somebody who grew up with ADHD and used that to my advantage, in business, I also needed a practice like meditation, like mindfulness to calm myself down. And I've been doing it for about a year before this
mm,
all came to pass. And I was just sitting there one day in silence. Um, and I got this weird voice that's like, you're gonna write a book. And I looked around, I was like, what? And it kind of went away. And the next day it came back. It's like, you're kidding me, right? Like that's not what I'm doing. I got to make money right now. I got to support my family. I got to keep going. I'm on this career path. And third day was it felt like a hand was being put on my shoulder, and it's like, this is the path.
mm,
And so I sat with it for a week, and after about a week, it's like, here's the title. Start from here. And so I was being offered this chance to step out of a company that was struggling as it was. We had gone through a failed IPO, and it was time to make a jump, a switch. I was at this juncture, and I believe that junctures come for us in many different ways in many different times in life, and they're an opportunity.
mm,
And usually we're afraid of them because it's change, but it's an opportunity to invite something new in our life. So I had this, and I went to this men's retreat with this other community I'm part of called Front Row Dads, which is family men with businesses, not businessmen with families.
mm,
And it all coalesced into knowing that here's a juncture. I have this opportunity. I need to do this for me.
mm,
It's time.
mm, mm. I feel like there's so much in there that so many people can relate to, and so helpful to hear the play by play of how that happened, and how each step, like the meditation a year prior, perhaps quieted things or developed the sense to hear that voice to begin with, and then having the conviction to follow it and to answer the call. And personally, that's what I feel for men right now. I'm going to speak to the men listening, because I'm a man. Women, I can't fully speak to being a woman because I don't, I'm not living in a woman's body. But for the men, I believe our mission is everything. Our calling is everything. Because if we have clarity on our mission, then I believe we have clarity on our direction. And with that, I believe that is the core of us as men. And it doesn't matter what challenges we're going through, it doesn't matter what anything we're going to. It's like if we know where our direction is pointing, then I believe, we're locked in. Without that, I believe we're lost. We're lost and flowing. And yes, there's certain achievements that can be made, but at our core, we're not locked in, I believe. And so I love how you felt the call, literally heard the call, and then you answered it. You answered it and you took action.
Yeah.
I really respect that.
Yeah, if I may, I'd love to read just the dedication of this book. It's really, really short. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to read it before I say anything.
Okay, cool.
So this book was written for Brent Perkins. Yes, myself. If I'm able to help myself, then I've done all that I can. My deepest hope is that through my dedication to myself and the work that only I can do, somehow it touches others, inspiring them to look inside and do the work that only they can do.
Mm.
And it's interesting. I've had plenty of people tell me that was super selfish. And the answer is, of course it was. And it was the most selfless thing I could do because it's the only thing I could do.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget that, especially as men, especially as fathers, where there's all these other responsibilities in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget the responsibility to ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, let's double down on that because I believe it's a great segue or entry into something that's become central philosophy for my life and something we've had quite a few conversations on, which is leading by example. A, that just being integrity. B, that being maximum efficiency. Because we can tell people what to do, and only a certain amount is that going to be heard, I believe, my experience. Or we can lead by example, get the results that other people want. And then over time, people say, hey, what are you doing? I notice that, you're at peace. I notice you have time. I notice you feel on mission. Notice you're present. Like, what are you doing? And so that's what comes to mind when you shared that is I think with men, we have this ingrained thing of providing and doing and, going out hunting and killing and providing the food back and making sure everybody eats first and then we do. And I believe that's totally true. And I also believe there's another level of that too. Because for example, if the hunter father in this case, is weakened and, can't hunt to get it, then everybody suffers. And so I believe this is part of the paradigm that you're bringing in to shift in a very practical way too, that a lot of men feel, but there's not necessarily the words for it quite yet, which is, part of the leadership that I know you'll mention. I don't want to give it away quite yet. But last thing I'll just bring this together is I believe if we want the best for those around us, we have got to make sure that we're living by example, and then, things follow from there.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking directly to books written by amazing guys like Simon Sinek, where leaders eat last. And there's so much truth to it. And there's a missing element. And that's the piece that I'm double clicking on. I'm doubling down on because all of these philosophies around serving, servant leadership, leaders eat last, they're all like they're the pinnacle of where we're going. And there's so many of us can't get there, at least sustainably get there. And then even if we can, like we're not in this, we don't have inner peace when we get there because we missed this component. This is the piece.
Right. Absolutely. And I sense there's a little slight resistance in the force for some people listening. I feel like some people are like, boom, okay, I'm locked in. Others, there's, providers. There's a little resistance there. So I'd like to speak to an example that I've seen is that a good intentioned father, provider, producer, creator goes out, works all day, works all night, providing and creating the things that they never had and providing it for their family, right? So that's that kind of leaders eat last type deal. And then what happens? When the children grow up, they don't have a relationship with the kids. Why? Because they were always gone. Why? Because when they were there, they were always gone working to provide, to give everything this. So it's from like a virtuous, love, but it wasn't balanced. So then they're always gone. And then if they are there, then they're exhausted, scattered, mentally not present. And I feel like, and I not feel, I believe, and in my experience, I've seen that to be the true reality of the best intentioned fathers, the most loving fathers. And it's this thing that they end up getting robbed of the thing that they wanted most because of this missing piece that you mentioned, making sure that they get filled up.
Yeah, I want to give you two quick examples. One of my close friends and him and I have done some of this work together.
Mm.
He runs a family business, and there's just a lot of pull on him being, especially a family business. He's got, cousins that work with him, a brother, it's generational, and he's also this family man, and he struggles. He's pulled in two directions, and so he would on the weekends when there's all the things happening for his kids, sporting events and birthday parties, he would be physically present because he felt obligated to, but he was rarely actually mentally present, emotional, and then more specifically, emotionally present, right? Very rarely the last one. And as we started to work through this in his life, he felt really selfish, leaning into himself, pouring into himself, nurturing himself, right? And what he realized one day is he kind of had this choice. Do I stick around to Saturday when I have this, like, I think he had a $20 million contract he was working on. So a really big deal for the business. And he's like, I need to get this done. And I have all these events with my kids. Do I step out of this, have some resentment because I'm going to want to finish this job. I want to go provide and kill that big game animal for my family, but I want to be there for my family because I know it's important. And do I bring that resentment then because I'm not out big game hunting, but I'm there. I'm there. I made it, but I'm not really there. And what he ended up doing was he stepped in and gave his kids about 90 minutes of fully on, full attention. He intentionally shut everything else down, and he was gone the rest of the day. And he told his kids. And at the end of the day, he was worried what they're going to say. And for the first time ever in doing this, his kids actually share with him, one, we don't actually want you there the whole time. Like, we're kids, we want to go play. We don't need you there.
Mm.
And what you gave us, like that showing up, the connection.
Mm.
He never had that with them before.
Mm.
And that was more valuable than 40 hours of time with his kids when you weren't really there. Right.
Mm.
So I think we tell ourselves, we sell ourselves this story. I got to be there. I got to do this. I need to serve other people. But it's just a story. It's not really giving anything to them because he didn't actually have anything to give because he didn't give to himself.
Mm. I love that story. That's so, so powerful. Mm. Presence meaning connection. Presence meaning connection. In the men's work that I've done and been through, presence comes up a lot. And I love how you said connection because I feel like that makes it even more practical, grounded, relatable. And whether it's the kids or as men or women, if we're not connected, we might as not well be there, like you mentioned. And I love how you share that because we can think of it in a work analogy. Like if we're just showing up to the computer or just showing up to the meetings, but we're not fully there, we're not fully connected to the work. Of course, what's going to happen? We all know what's going to happen. It's going to take twice as long, 3 times as long, 4 times as long, not to mention the damage control, the fires that create from being like, oh, yeah, I'm there. Okay, sure, but not really there. And so I like these frames because in work, I feel like everybody can know that. Like if you show up to a work day, 50% connected, do we think that's good for business? No.
Nope.
What happens with the kids, the woman? Um, Same thing. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, in work, what we can get done in 4 hours, 2 2-hour sprints when we are so full, so whole, so present for that, it's probably 2 or 3 days worth of work.
Yeah.
And yet we put this shame and guilt on ourselves like time equals success. And it's so
Right.
false.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of a quote that mentor of mine, Nicholas David Nin, founder of Soul Contract, said to me, founder of Soul Contract Community, said to me once upon a time, he said, it's not the amount of hours you work, it's the quality of the energy in the hours that you work. And I feel like we can take that to the next step here is say, it's quality of the connection in our work. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So I feel like this is marinating. And I feel like it's so powerful to address this from different angles because it's so wired into, I believe, us as men to do this. And so, taking a step further here, could you share a bit about a case study of a man that you've worked with or a man in your mastermind group where they started making this shift of, okay, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And I'm seeing my schedule through a different lens, both in work, both with family, both in romantic relationship, and focusing on these time blocks where it can be 100% connected. Like maybe like we have a charge level on our phone instead of being like 20% with red or yellow 50%, it's 100% green connected. Could you share what was that like as a man stepped more into that way of living and being and leading?
Yeah, there's another gentleman who has gone through one of the programs I run, and he is part owner in this business, but he's also a director of a division, and he's got to perform some of the time too, because it's a small business, so they're wearing a lot of hats. And it was rare that he didn't have weeks of work stacked up behind him, and he was always behind. And as he started to step into putting himself first at times, right? Filling up his cup in his off time. What happened was is that he started to step out of his own way. He got out of his own way. He found out that he was his own worst enemy, that he was his own bottleneck, that he had to prove to himself something over and over again. So the amount of time he was actually spending not trusting himself, which means he didn't trust anybody that worked for him,
Mhm.
freed him up to a point where he almost freed himself out of a job in terms of what he had defined as his job, right?
Mhm.
And it scared him a little bit because he saw this window of, oh my, I'm literally spending all my day on things I don't need to do, when I realize I have this company, I hire these people to do a job and I don't let them. It translated into his personal life with his fiance, and he really leaned into this, I guess a lot from the Four Agreements, which is just such an amazing book, but it's so hard for us to live, which is it's not about ourselves, right? I mean, it's never about us when somebody is struggling, right? And we can't actually change anybody else. We can just do our best. And not trying to solve everybody's problems, not trying to do things that are out of our control, which is pretty much everything outside of us, in our own actions. That's where time is freed up to a level that it surprises most of us that are able to step into that place.
Hmm. Yeah, let's go deeper into that. And because I know there's popular books like Extreme Ownership
Mm.
by Jocko Willink.
Taco. Yeah.
Love Jocko, love that book. And I know for myself, I have been on different spectrums where, one chapter is extreme ownership of like, I control everything, like everything comes down to me. And then also still having that, but giving people space to be their own leaders. Because otherwise, I feel like, and I know that's exactly what Jocko did, with these leading teams and people. And so, not to say that's not from the book, but just saying, I think maybe that's how sometimes it can be interpreted or taken.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's go into this concept of creating leaders, creating leaders. Because if we're creating worker bees, they always got to do what they're told. If we're creating leaders, people are captains of their own ship, which is part of the greater ship, whether that's in the eight-figure companies that you led with the teams that you had, or within the family, creating leaders. And I believe part of creating leaders is giving people space, giving people freedom, to make decisions, to explore things, to maybe do things that you feel like wouldn't work, but people just sometimes need to explore and try it out. And then also sometimes they do work, and that's the power of the team. Like, it's a crowdsourcing solutions. So yeah, how do you find that balance of, on one hand, holding, I'd say, okay, everything, the philosophy of perhaps of everything comes down to the leader. So whatever it was, whatever who is on there, go up the chain or go into the source, and that could be, adjusted by the leader. On the other hand, giving people space to be their own leaders. How do you connect with that, and what's your philosophy on that with the men in their work and in their family?
Yeah. The most interesting thing, being a leader for so many years is that there are so many ways to skin a cat to get things done.
Mm.
And sometimes my way was an efficient way. I thought it was the most efficient way. Of course, that statement can't be true because I don't know all the options and angles. But it definitely wasn't always the most productive, most successful, most whatever.
Mm.
It just was. And it was a way I could control because I had fear. And so I would do that. And as you start to let that go in your life, and we'll talk about how it shows up in your personal life with your family too, but like in business, yeah, it's scary as heck. But all the books written, buy back your time, these other philosophies around how to do this. And until we start to trust ourselves enough that we don't know anything really. We might be the spark, the drive behind why a business is going in a certain direction, but that's it. Like, we are going to die on the vine. We're going to shrivel up and just blow ourselves up mentally if we don't completely let go of control, with healthy boundaries, healthy walls up, um, pony walls, just half walls. People can see over them and suggest that our walls need to be moved, right?
Yeah.
Um, and allow people to thrive in their own way, to bring forth their best, because all of this is about modeling, right? And if we stifle somebody else's creativity and somebody else's energy and passion and drive, guess what they're going to do all the way down the chain? Same thing.
Mm.
And I found this in my own marriage, and I see this a lot in families where, divorce rate's ridiculously high. It's what, close to 60%, maybe higher. And a lot of families, and I hear this a lot with men my age in the mid 40s, things aren't great, they're fine. I'm just going to wait until the kids go to college and then probably make a decision.
Mm.
So, okay, so we're going to model for our kids that the most arguably difficult, intimate, personal, the thing that's written about the most, that causes the most mental health problems thing, or a partnership in life. we're going to allow for something that we know isn't healthy to persist so we don't potentially ruffle things with our kids or downstream. And we're going to model to them that you should get into something that you're connected to like that for 20 years. And it's okay to then like we're showing our kids that it's okay to do that. Like we're modeling that for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So we model certain behaviors in our businesses, and you wonder why 5 layers down, it actually is like an extremely unhealthy version of it because it's like playing phone, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You play telephone and 5 layers down, things get distorted. You do
Right.
the same thing in your family life and your kids and then their kids, and it gets distorted even further because that's what's been modeled.
Mm.
Versus showing up in a healthy way, doing things that can be uncomfortable, but that honor everybody. And you're pulled back and you're connected, but you're detached enough from the outcome that you can tick and tack, you can make moves, you can try things on without hurting people around you because this is this is how we um, use flow in a structured way, in a way that's healthy and still having our vision in mind.
Mm. Absolutely. And this is the perfect time, I believe, to share the free gift that you have for people. We're not done yet. We're going to get into more of your method because I feel like it's so perfect because I feel like there's no one size fits all of this. There's so many nuances to a person's business, to where they're at their life, the family dynamic, all of these things. And that's what I really resonate with your leadership style is you're not pulling the big finger out and saying, this is what you got to do and this is the right way. No, you're saying, hey, here's my experience. It's what I've experienced in my own self. Here's what others have experienced. And then with that information, the driven dads can make their own decision and chart their own course. So yeah, if you could share a bit on that gift, I believe it's 3xbold.com/toolkit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um, what I've done is I've given the opportunity to get the audio version of my book, Paper Cuts, for free,
Right there. Yeah.
right there. So you're welcome to still go to Amazon and get the hard copy if you want it. But this is really this journey. It's Paper Cuts, the art of self-delusion. For me, it was because I'd stepped out of my personal agency. I would tell myself stories. It's about perception. Like this is what happened and why. This is why they're reacting this way. I'm a victim. I can only respond this way. The world put their thumb on me, so I have to respond this way. Those are all stories. And what I found was is in my life, there's we get to a place. Some of us go to therapy. Some of us chase plant medicine. And we're looking for what is it? Did my dad hit me? Was my aunt mean to me when I was young? Like, where's my wound, my trauma? And I'm not saying they don't exist, but there's rarely one thing.
Hmm.
For me, it was death by 1,000 paper cuts, and that's where the title comes from. And the art of self-delusion part is that I was creating these delusions that there's only one story or one possibility, when the opposite most of the time can also be true in our lives. So that's my journey through this. And it helped open up the possibilities for me to say, I don't have to control everything. I don't need to understand it all because there's so many possibilities in all of our lives. So you get the audiobook, and I've got my favorite 5 tools to um, what I say is calm and create your inner world, control your inner world, because that's what you can control, so you can handle the outer chaos. And for me, it looks like some breathing techniques, a little bit of just quiet and mindfulness, taking time outs, and a couple of other things that within under 3 minutes, 5 different techniques that I used. How do you get calm so you don't react,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm. I feel like that's so powerful what you shared. Control your inner world. So you can face the chaos of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. So that's 3xbold.com/toolkit to get that. And yeah, now I have a question about the method. If you could share a bit about, how many parts in the method, what's a top level view that when driven dads are working with you one-on-one and driven dads are in your mastermind group, what is that core philosophy with the 3x bold method?
Yeah. So the 3x bold really means body, mind, and spirit. So the goal is how do we show up to life in this bold way? Um, and for me, bold means courageous, authentic, and wild. And to take that a step further, the courageous piece for me is really about unlocking our superpower of choice. And that's really what Paper Cuts is about. It's understanding the depth of choice we have. I believe that's our superpower. Like we were given one thing and it's free will.
Hmm.
Um, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl was such a powerful, first step in looking at what this could mean in life. And while he went through something atrocious to bring this message to life, the amount of people he's impacted has probably saved hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives because of the mental change, the psychological change he gave us permission to explore, that we have choice, right? So that's how I believe that's our superpower, and that's the courageous piece. Um, when I talk about it being authentic for me is understanding our meaning of life. And it was Picasso who said the meaning of life is to understand or own or develop your gifts. What are our gifts? Gifts are these innate things we were all given. Maybe it's a musical ability. Maybe it's the gift of gab. Maybe it's just playing a sport or doing something or sharing or teaching. What are your gifts, right? Take them, develop them, hone them, sharpen them. And he went on to say that, and why I believe I have, and why I have the wild part there is for purpose. And the purpose of life, something I hear about all the time. What's my purpose? I'm lost. I can't find it. I got to put my stake in the ground. Well, I think our purpose is all the same thing. It's to give away your gifts. And that doesn't mean free. It can be your job, you can make money from it. Or it could be your charitable piece. It could just be what you do to your friends and family. But wild is there because wildly, who cares what people think, right? With wild abandon, give away your gifts. That's your purpose in life. But you can't live your purpose if you don't understand and hone your gifts, your the meaning of life, like why you are here on this planet. So that's the overarching formula we step into and really look at, starting with how do you own your superpower? Because owning choice in life starts to unlock your ability to step into your gifts and to live them out through your purpose.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Taking some notes here. Hmm. Yeah, I love it. Just absolutely love it. Feels very dialed in, so grounded, so clear, so connected. Hmm. Fantastic. And what I'd like to also share here too is if a person wants more clarity on their purpose, on their
Mhm.
mission, I have a free gift as well. It's a free soul contract report for mission driven coaches to help you get more clarity on your gifts and why you're here and how your mastermind group can be an extension of that. And that's at truefreedom.ai/free gift, truefreedom.ai/free gift. And yeah, totally resonate with your method. And so I'd love to hear a bit on how your method shows up in your mastermind group of
Mhm.
these men collaborating together with this powerful method.
So putting it all together, I actually teach something. I teach another fun method called shag. So
Okay.
yeah. this tongue-in-cheek thing about teaching men how to shag. And no, it's not about teaching them how to have sex. But you know, we as we do this work, as we step out of our own way and really start to embrace who we are, right? Our sexuality plays a role in all of this because it's how we connect with our partners, right? And how we procreate and how we as humans, as mammals, right? It's just an innate part of it. So it's fun to be a little cheeky about it. It's fun to laugh and smile, right? Play has been a huge thing that has been evident in my life that I need more of.
Mm.
And for me, play is being silly and playing with things like calling a method for how to become, in personal development, how to shag, right? I, I just love bringing the play together in this way. And what shag means is it's an acronym, and it means show up and surrender, or show up and let go, hold space and boundaries, ask and receive, and give gratuitously. And as men specifically, so I am speaking to the men that are listening to this podcast, or the women that see this in their partners. We take give gratuitously and we flip it upside down and make it the first thing we do.
Mm.
And we think that, well, ultimately, look, I do believe we're supposed to serve, right? It's why our purpose is to give away our gifts. It is to give, like that is the ultimate purpose in life. But you can't start there. And it's in this order of show up and let go because until we let go of control, find presence, and just look at ourselves first, nothing else is possible. Like the rest of the formula breaks down. It doesn't happen. And what you end up giving, some depleted half version of you.
Mm. Absolutely. And I feel like for men, the masculine trait of quantify, left brain, it's like, okay, let's quantify it with a game. If you show up to, your kids or your business or whatever with like units that you have to give, if we're depleted, we only have so many. But if we're feeling energized up, we did meditation, did the gym, had some space just to explore our thoughts, boom, we're showing up with way more units to what we care about most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And one thing I'd like to share too with the shag. If there's anybody listening who's like, yeah, I don't know about play. I don't know. I got a different word. That could mean, it means the same thing. Fun. If play resonates with people, let's go for it. If not, fun. And because I've had conversations with people too, like, oh, I don't need any play. I don't need this. I'm like, could you use more fun? Yeah. Could you use more laughs? Yeah. Could you use more jokes? Yeah. And that's like the most hardcore men I've seen because I've been in men's work originally before the mastermind work, and they're dying to have some more fun. They're inner jokester. They're people that if they get some of the edge taken off, they're the first one to be cracking jokes. They're the first one to be bringing laughter in the room. And so regardless of the word is that permission for that part to come through is what I'd like to share with the men listening. And what happens? Better relationship with the kids, better relationship with the woman, better relationship with the employees, because winning teams, I believe, have fun. They're focused, they're driven, they're on point. And in my experience, they're having fun. And so the power of play, I believe, is one of the things that's most slept on, the power of fun for us as men.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for saying that because the whole point of play is to have fun.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been a phenomenal journey. And so, what I'd like to do as we begin to close is do a final summary of the journey that we've gone on today. And then, once I go through this summary, I'll pitch it over to you to give us a closing thought, closing concept, something that you'd like to put a bow on for today. And so, what we started about is Brent's story of feeling like he was chasing the next thing. And you had the measures of success by pretty much everybody's, standard. Had the CEO position that you worked your way up to. You had the finances and the benefits and the trips and the accolades. And you felt the void inside, though. And when you felt that void, there was an opportunity for a shift, and you felt the call. You literally heard the voice to write the book, and you answered the call. You took a risk, and you did what you felt in your core that you needed to do. And that was the move that changed everything. And I'm sure there was many bumps along the way. However, you stayed connected to your mission, you stayed committed to your calling. And what ended up happening is that brought more presence to your relationships, brought more connection to your relationships, and started to realize that quality is way more powerful than quantity. And as you wrote this book for yourself, the word started spreading somehow of men resonating with and wanting the same thing, and realizing that the books and things that they're reading were phenomenal, yet it felt like there's probably a missing piece. And as they read your book, paper cuts of how, the pain that you'd experienced in your past, and that's something I like to substitute the word trauma with as well, because the men that I know too, like there can be an off switch when we hear trauma, like, oh, I don't have trauma. That person went through that thing that was so much harder than me. And, my life was so much easier compared to that, even though they've had atrocious things happen to them, like men I know. Like, okay, let's just call it pain. Have you had pain? Yeah, I have pain. So realizing that the pain from our past could be like 1,000 paper cuts or more, holding us back, creating self-delusion, and holding us back from the people that we care most, as a father, as a lover, as a leader. And so you shared how you have your toolkit for members, 3xbold.com/toolkit. And really this concept of leadership and control on that dance, that spectrum, that flow of what to control, what we can control, and have technique and precision, as well as the freedom for people to find their own way, use their own creativity, be connected to their own choices, and really creating leaders. And all this coming together with your 3x bold method of mind, body, and spirit. And maybe in the center, I'm seeing like a triangle. And in that center is the power of choice, the power of choice at the center of everything. And that allowing us to be more courageous, be more authentic, and permission to be wild and free with, all right, this is my calling, this is my mission, these are the people I care about, and that's it. And so you shared about Man's Search for Meaning, that powerful book, as well as Picasso's quote and the power of play and sprinkling in the fun. So all of that coming together to help driven dads be more powerful in their business, be more effective, crush those goals that they have for themselves, while being there for their family goals, their relationship goals, and how actually synergizing them together, I believe, from what I've heard from your case studies, even outside of this podcast, is that allows them to go to heights that weren't even possible before, when they were not firing on all cylinders. So with that being said, I'd love to hear a final note for us today from you.
Yeah, wow, what an amazing summary. The scariest step is the first step, and it's what unlocks everything else. It's that S in Shag. It's the show up and let go. And it's one of the reasons I don't set goals in the same way I used to. I don't follow the SMART goal methodology, because while we need to have a target, there needs to be a north, right? A true north, pointing our compass in a direction. Life changes so much, and so many things happen that we have no control over, can't predict. That when we simply show up, and I mean really show up, whether that's with your romantic partner, or your kids or your business. And the let go part is so key here because you're not showing up with expectations or assumptions or chasing an outcome, right? You're just present. You can now make decisions in the moment, which we only have the present moment anyways. That's the only place we can actually utilize this superpower of choice. But try this at work. Try it with your wife or your husband or your girlfriend or boyfriend. Try it with your kids where you just fully show up. And it is amazing how that true north will stay there, but how you get there, you're no longer controlling it. And the inner peace it brings, the calm, is off the charts because you no longer have to follow some specific, connect the dots all the way there, the dots I painted. No, they don't exist. The dots are appearing day by day. And as you show up, oh, the dot's over here today. Oh, it's over here today. It's really powerful.
Mm. The North Star. I love it. All right, everybody. So that'll conclude us for today. That has been this episode of Maximize Your Mastermind with Brent Perkins. Thanks so much, Brent, for being on the show.
Yeah.